Throughout the whole course of the Wushu conflict, the Wei military had assembled troops but never mobilized. The first emperor of Wei, Cao Pis, finally invaded the rival state of Wu in 222 to exploit its perceived weakness after the Battle of Yiling. At that time, the Wu forces were stretched thinly across at least 4 fronts, including the western front facing Baidicheng, where Liu Bei's declaration of war was still in effect. Cao Pis's invasions were separated into 2 parts. The first part includes the 3 pronged attacks through the years 222 to 224 before he called for a complete retreat. The second part includes Jin Zongs' rebellion and the 4th and final invasion from Guangling, which came in 225, though no fighting occurred during this final incident. It's noted that Dong Zhao helped serve as emperors by predicting the movements and decisions of his enemy accurately and saved the Wei armies from defeat on numerous occasions. During one campaign against Wu, he accurately predicted that there would be an ambush, but no specific location or battle is tied to this claim. Cao Pis's plans to keep Sun Quan and Liu Bei's relations sour backfired, as the 2 states rekindled their allegiance following the Battle of Yiling. With the full defeat of Liu Bei, Sun Quan had obtained all possible benefits from his submission to Cao Pis, and he wasted very little time in breaking that connection, an alliance that had never been very popular with his officers. In an attempt to improve his own relations with the Sun clan, Cao Pis demanded that Sun Quan's eldest son, Sun Deng, was sent to Luoyang as a hostage. Sun Quan declined and apologized, stating that his son was very young and too vulnerable to be away from his family. Cao Pis didn't bring up nor press the matter any further, but he soon demanded that he sent once more. This was also declined. Diplomatic ties between Wei and Wu continued to sour until Cao Pis finally attacked. Sun Quan sent numerous envoys to negotiate peace, but they all resulted in failure. In late October of 222, Cao Pis ordered Cao Xiu to lead 20 armies as a naval fleet, with Zhang Liao, Zhang Ba and Xiao Yan down the Zizhi tributary river to the Yangtze. They attacked the commander of 5 armies, Lu Fan, at the Wu stronghold of Dongku. The initial efforts of Wei were a success, so Sun Quan answered by declaring independence from them in November of 222, which escalated tensions. The Wu reinforcements led by Sun Xiao, Xu Sheng and He Qi made their way to the battle. One of Sun Jian's sons, Sun Lang, was acting in capacity as the guardsman of the palace, but early into the battle he set fire to his own camp, destroying a large amount of supplies in the process. Initially, the Wei forces easily penetrated the Wu front lines, no doubt because of their strength. In addition to this, Lu Fan's forces were hit by a storm, which seriously damaged his fleet. Cao Xiu could not make any significant gains either though, due to the bad weather. Cao Xiu was hot-headed, but his subordinates strongly advised him and reeled him in. Cao Pis had worried about Cao Xiu before the battle, but Dong Zhao assured his emperor that his troops would control him. When Cao Xiu, Zhang Liao and Zhang Ba decided to launch their initial attack, they defeated Lu Fan. Sun Quan soon heard that Zhang Liao was on the battlefield, so he warned his men. Zhang Liao may be ill, but he is still a foe to be reckoned with. Be careful. Xu Sheng, Chuan Kong and Sun Xiao arrived with reinforcements, then rendezvoused with Lu Fan, who then led naval forces across the river to resist Wei. Lu Fan's forces were hit by a freak storm, sending them crashing along the northern shore. The troops in the Wu fleet who didn't drown were now in danger of being attacked by Wei or dying of starvation. The generals became browbeaten, because they'd lost about half of their ships. In early 223, Zhang Ba was sent to attack the small nearby stronghold at Shuling, exploiting Lu Fan's vulnerability after the storm. Leading 500 light boats of Yin Lu and 10,000 volunteers, Zhang Ba faced Chuan Kong, who commanded armoured soldiers patrolling the riverbank around the clock. Chuan Kong's forces repelled frequent raids by small groups of Wei Marines and set fire to Zhang Ba's siege engines upon his arrival. Yin Lu led several thousand troops across the river. Chuan Kong engaged him, slaying him in combat. As Zhang Ba retreated, Sun Xiao and Chuan Kong gave chase, killing or capturing thousands of soldiers. Delayed by the long travel, He Qi had not yet crossed the river. His separate army remained intact, so the Dongku defenders relied on him for strength. Qi had a lavish and refined nature. His soldiers' armour and weapons were exceptionally fine, and his flagship was adorned with intricate carvings and red engravings. His fleet of assault and battleships arrived. Shields, spears and lances were decorated with floral and gourd patterns, while the bows, crossbows and arrows were all made of the finest materials. With blue canopies and crimson curtains, his fleet loomed like a mountain. Cao Xiu and the others were intimidated by this, so halted their attack. Thus, He Shi saved Lu Fan and the others from certain doom. During this time, Xu Sheng was able to gather his surviving troops and form a defensive line along the shore. They drove the Wei forces back long enough for Lu Fan to regroup. A naval battle ensued shortly after, where Cao Xiu engaged Lu Fan while the other Wei generals came for Xu Cheng. He was outnumbered, but was able to hold his position. The Wu soldiers were overjoyed when they heard of the arrival of He Shi. They continued to gain morale as news arrived confirming Wei's struggles at the various other frontiers. Eventually, Cao Xiu was repelled from Donghu and withdrew to Luoyang in January of 223. In late October of 222, Cao Pi ordered Cao Zhen, Zhang He, Xiahou Shang and Xu Huang to attack two key locations in Jing province, with Xin Pi serving as a military advisor. The first objective was to occupy Nan Commandery, which would then make it possible to lay siege to Jiangling County. Of the three fronts, the most critical Wei attacks were concentrated on the Wu fortress at Jiangling. It was a very uneasy time for the Wu forces, since there was an extreme shortage of military personnel, while an outbreak of disease also greatly reduced the morale and number of troops. Jiangling's commander, Zhu Ran, was in control of a very low number of troops, around 5,000. While Cao Pi marched a supporting force from Luoyang to Wancheng in case of any required backup, Zhang He played a key role in overrunning Wu's defences at Nan Commandery. After quickly defeating Wu reinforcements led by Sun Sheng, he made his way to assist the main army's siege of Jiangling. Jiang Qin's son, Jiang Yi, was dispatched to Nan Commandery but was killed in action. Xiahou Shang sent 30,000 troops to build numerous pontoon bridges across the shallow water to the river island of Bailizhou. With each passing day, the number of Wei soldiers besieging Jiangling increased by the thousands. As the frontline commander, Cao Zhen ordered his subordinates to dig tunnels, pile up earth to form small mounds, and build watchtowers to rain arrows onto the defenders. When Zhang He arrived, he also immediately built pontoon bridges from the south side of the river to the northern banks to cut off Zhu Ran's supplies. Zhu Ran's forces were shut inside the city, where he faced the challenge of keeping order within. The prefect of Jiangling, Yao Dai, attempted to collaborate with Wei due to low supplies and being outnumbered. Zhu Ran put an end to the plot. When news arrived of Sun Sheng's defeat, it further intimidated his army. The water supply was also running low, and some civilians and soldiers tried to surrender by opening the gates. Zhu Ran put an end to the plot. When Wu reinforcements arrived, Zhuge Jin deployed his navy across different locations on the river. He turned out to be an incompetent military commander, however, as he showed weak leadership while adopting a slow and reactive approach. Along with Yang Tan, he wanted to lead men to defend Bailizhou Island, but were unable to locate the Wei crossing point. At the same time, the Wei troops also occupied Zhongzhou Island. Xiahou Shang roused around 10,000 troops and split them up on board smaller boats to cross the river at night. Once gathered, they unleashed a stealth attack onto Zhuge Jin by land and water. Xiahou Shang scored a major victory against him, burning Wu ships and destroying some Wu camps on the opposite side of the river. Still not knowing how and where the Wei forces were crossing, Zhuge Jin and Pan Zhang had no effective way to lift the siege. In time, the pontoon bridges became too submerged by water to be maintained by the Wei forces, while at some point, Zhang He supervised troops as they captured an island on the Yangtze and started building a small castle on it. When another batch of reinforcements arrived, Pan Zhang said, "The Wei army's prowess was formidable at the beginning, and the river's waters were shallow, so we couldn't match them." He led his men upstream away from the Wei position, then cut down and bundled together large quantities of reeds. After fitting them to big rafts, the reeds were set on fire, then sent afloat downstream, inevitably towards the pontoon bridges. After they were burnt to a crisp, the Wu forces executed a counterattack against Wei and even destroyed 2 camps. Knowing what Pan Zhang had done, Xiahou Shang led the Wei forces north before their retreat route could be cut off. They were able to defeat Pan Zhang and Yang Tan, but they could not breach Jiangling's walls. The conflict went on well into April 223 until a plague broke out in the Wei camps. By early summer, Cao Pi had already returned to Luoyang. The third invasion was directed closer to the Wu king Sun Quan. The late Wu general, Gan Ning, had helped take away outpost at the mouth of the Rushu River, therefore Cao Ren attacked Rushu. Known as the Battle of Rushu Ku, Cao Ren led several tens of thousands against the position, but first spread false information that he was attacking Xianxi. Xu Huan took the bait and sent many of his men to reinforce Xianxi, but when Cao Ren attacked Rushu, he soon realized his mistake. The defenders were afraid because they were outnumbered, but there was no time to recall the soldiers before Cao Ren's experienced troops arrived. Xu Huan told his men, "Whenever two armies fight, the outcome is determined by the commander's will, not the size of the army. You have all heard of Cao Ren's military might, but how do you compare his ability to mine? An invading force should be double the size of a defending force when they fight on flat ground. This condition is that the defenders are not in a fortress and are exhausted after travel. Now Cao Ren is neither wise nor brave. His soldiers are faint-hearted and exhausted from marching 1,000 li. On the other hand, we occupy a high-walled fortress, which sits north of a river and south to a mountain. The situation is advantageous to us. We shall prevail over these tired invaders. We will win 100 battles if this situation recurs 100 times. Even if Cao Pi arrives himself, we should have no fear, so why should we worry about the likes of Cao Ren?" The Wei army found great success initially by destroying all of Wu's armies on the field, but Xu Huan had a plan. He hid his 5,000 soldiers in the homes of civilians, struck his banners, and calmed his drums. The city looked almost deserted, so Cao Ren sent his son Cao Dai forward to attack. He also sent a naval force under Chang Diao, Zhuge Xian and Wang Shuang to capture Zhongzhou Island, where the families of Xu Huan's officers stayed. Cao Ren himself remained at the rear to offer support, but his subordinates still fell right into Xu Huan's trap. When Cao Dai attacked the city thinking it was undefended, Xu Huan's hidden soldiers forced him to retreat. He earned himself a brief moment of respite after he infiltrated and burned down the Wei camps, during which he was able to recall his soldiers from Xianxi. Yan Gui's ambush troops were also lying in wait on the island. When Chang Diao and Wang Shuang ran back to the shore, they found out their ships had already been taken and a retreat route was sealed. Around 1,000 Wei soldiers including Chang Diao died in a single battle, while the rest of the detachment surrendered along with Wang Shuang. This dealt a heavy blow to the Wei army. By the time Cao Ren came forward to personally command the siege over Rushu, Xu Huan's soldiers were able to regroup and defend the city. Cao Pi's invasions created a volatile situation where Wu sought to counterattack or destabilize Wei's territories, particularly in border regions around Hefei or Jing province. Man Chong, a Wei general known for his diplomatic and military acumen, was active during this period. Sometime between 220 and 222, he participated in two battles. First, he defeated Wu forces at Guangling before he was ordered to station at Xinyi by Cao Pi. In the second battle, Man Chong led the vanguard force towards Jing Lake and established his position on one side of the lake, directly across from his enemy. He predicted that they would try to set fire to his camp at night, as the winds were prime for such a strategy. As such, he was able to prepare his troops and repelled the attack. Man Chong's battles occurred roughly simultaneously with Cao Pi's invasions of eastern Wu, likely ongoing or overlapping with the main invasions. Without specific records of these two distinct battles, Man Chong's operations are better understood as a defensive measure against Wu threats. The Battle of Qishun took place in June 223, after the Battle of Dongku. The Wu general, Jin Zongs, who was in charge of military operations in Qishun, defected to Wei and moved to their outpost on the north side of the river. He frequently led Wei forces to raid the Wu settlements along the border. In response, He Qi supervised Mi Fang, Xian Yudan, Li Yuxiao and Hu Zong as they advanced up the river in the blistering heat. Most of the Wu forces withdrew due to the weather making an attack so difficult. Thus, Jin Zongs lowered his guard. This allowed He Qi to penetrate the Wei army and capture the rebel alive on the southern slopes of the Dabai Mountains. In late 224, Cao Pi began mobilizing his forces to attack Jianyi. Xu Sheng suggested to pitch encampments lined out from the city, erect fake towers within each camp, and suspend some warships on the river. The other generals disagreed, and felt such defences would serve no purpose, but Xu Sheng ignored them and proceeded with his plan. His ruse effectively led to the construction of a dummy wall along the river banks, which served as a visual deterrent that stretched from Jianyi to Jiancheng. The last invasion occurred in 225, though no actual fighting took place. Cao Pi knew that his invasion would fail if it came from upstream, where the river was narrow, so he chose to stage his invasion from Guangling Commandery, where the river was wider. He established his headquarters in the former capital of the Commandery, then led more than 100,000 men and warships through Sun Shao's territory, Wu's administrator over Guangling, then assembled them on the northern side of the Yangtze. Cao Pi ordered his troops to destroy the blockading walls and personally led the fleet when they set sail. Sun Quan responded by sending a large Wu fleet to block them. Despite their size, Cao Pi was more worried about the harsh winter and its effects. Looking at the impossible barrier before his army, Sun Quan's dummy walls and the ice, he sighed. Wei has thousands of armoured cavalry units, but we can't even deploy them here. Alas, it truly is the will of heaven which divides the south from the north. Cao Pi then ordered for the complete withdrawal of his forces, after which Sun Quan's generals finally recognised the value of Xu Sheng's plan. Meanwhile, Sun Shao ordered his most valiant warriors to make a night raid on Wei's lines. Under his subordinates' leadership, they attempted to capture Cao Pi alive and even managed to hold up numerous Wei carriages. Gao Shou and his men even captured and made off with the parasol of Cao Pi's chariot, but the man himself eluded them.